Gelato, pizza, time with friends. These were all things I was expecting going into the school Italy trip. Life-changing faith experience? Not so much. Church scholar St. Augustine famously wrote, "You have made us for yourself, O Lord, and our heart is restless until it rests in you." But what does the statement really mean? And I don't mean in the broad theological sense, but on the personal level. What does it mean to have a restless heart, and how does it find rest in the Lord? The answer to this is ultimately going to be unique to every one of us. Each one of us has our own struggles and is at a different spot on our faith journey. An instance that has profoundly impacted me and allowed me to fully realize what the statement means was traveling to Italy with the school the summer after my sophomore year. Going into the trip, my faith life was at a standstill. In it, I was treading water, but I was seeking air. After 10 years of Catholic education, I'd gotten used to going through the motions without appreciating or understanding what was behind them. That February, I was confirmed. I really didn't feel much about this, but no disrespect towards it either. I looked at it as more of a rite of passage than a saving sacrament. Life continued on as normal, except I started skipping Mass and losing the little faith that I still had. I listened to secular culture and even doubted the existence of God. It wasn't that I had done research into cutting-edge sciences or philosophy that totally changed my mind on the whole God thing, but it was that I really didn't care. From what I understood, life was going all right. I didn't think I needed God. This changed a month later in March, when I broke my leg in the most common manner, that is, impaling yourself with a volleyball pole. I was disappointed to see that it was decided that I couldn't travel to Florida over break to see my grandmother and attempt to get a tan. I stayed home, remaining in bed for the large part of that break, hoping to rest my leg. This allowed me to take a step back and examine what was going on in my life. I remembered how much fulfillment my faith had once brought me and wished to regain what was lost. This injury was not the pit of my despair, however, as on March 16th, my mother's cousin, who I had been close with growing up, died at age 32 after a nearly lifelong battle with cancer. Eddie's death, though not necessarily sudden, put me in a state of disbelief. Any flickering speck of faith that I still had disappeared with an event that I could not see as anything but a cruel robbery. This full realization of my faithfulness wasn't satisfying, as it provided less logical answers and outcomes for the unfair death of my cousin. A few months after, in June, we left for Italy. As I mentioned earlier, I didn't go into the trip expecting a profound faith experience, but I did go into it feeling unfulfilled with my lack of faith. One of the chaperones was Father Jangdahl, who I'd never had as a teacher before. Father spoke with such passion about Christ and his church when we were in Rome that I began to think to myself, if one can be so passionate about a God and his church, even when as a priest, he lives a life uniquely countercultural, he's either one, crazy, or two, there must be some truth to what he believes. In Rome, we had the opportunity to attend Sunday Mass celebrated by Father in one of the side chapels of St. Peter's Basilica, and I remember walking past a confessional after Mass feeling a desire to go to confession. Remembering my mother's story about how her confession in college in St. Peter's was what kept her faith alive in a low point, I hoped that by going to confession, I would experience a reversion of my own. As the trip progressed, I had the opportunity to go to a few more of the Masses offered by Father. There was one specifically that I think brought me back to the church. It was a few nights after traveling through Assisi and hearing Father talk about the great lives of the saints who lived in this otherwise normal medieval town. Now, I don't remember the homily or the readings, but I just remember feeling God's love in my heart for the first time in a while and a desire to confess my sins and work to correct them. So it was in the Atlanta airport on the way home from the trip that I received the sacrament of reconciliation for the first time in 7 years. My trip to Italy and the work of Father Jangdahl ultimately brought me back to the church, where I know that I can find the rest promised to me. By striving to live our life as Christ, we are able to find the true rest that Augustine proclaimed. Thank you.